Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am genuinely really eager to guide you through this material today, because honestly, we're looking at something that is way more than just some dusty corporate policy. The Hazard Communication Program SOP isn't merely a set of rules, and it's definitely not just a bureaucratic checklist to keep auditors happy. No, this is an urgent, literally life-saving injury prevention tool. It's the blueprint for how you and your entire team survive the unseen dangers out there on the production floor. So let's bring this to life and see exactly how these guidelines are working to actively protect you every single shift.
Okay, let's dive right into this by establishing the real-world stakes. I want you to imagine walking onto the active printing floor and picking up a random squeeze bottle left near a press. Do you know exactly what is inside that spray bottle? I mean, is it a totally harmless water mix? Or is it a heavy-duty solvent that could cause immediate chemical burns or even permanent blindness? In a really fast-paced environment where we're mixing volatile inks and press washes, making assumptions can literally be deadly. And that is exactly why this explainer introduces what I like to call your chain of safety. It's a series of non-negotiable links designed to protect you from catastrophic chemical mix-ups. So, to make sure we're all on the same page, we're going to break this explainer down into three main parts. First, we'll cover the foundation of knowledge. Then we'll look at active floor defense. And finally, we'll wrap up with physical protection and emergency readiness. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the foundation of knowledge, which focuses on training and master records. We're going to see how our chain of safety builds, starting with the absolute prerequisites required before anyone even steps onto the active floor. Because really, this is where safety actually begins.
Look, before you ever touch a piece of equipment, you absolutely must complete mandatory safety orientation training. I really want to emphasize this point. You cannot assume any active production duties until this is signed off. Why? Because this training isn't just some generic video. It covers the exact site-specific chemical hazards you're going to face on your specific floor. It ensures a universal understanding of safe handling before you are ever exposed to a risk.
And speaking of site-specific hazards, every single facility must maintain its own site-specific hazardous chemical list. You can't just rely on a generic corporate master list. Think about it. The offset carton lines down in Frankston and Tyler, Texas, use entirely different oil-based inks and fountain solutions compared to the flexography label and pouch lines up in Edinburgh, Virginia. This localized list tracks the exact volatile inks, coatings, and solvents present on your specific floor. It essentially acts as your plant's unique chemical fingerprint. Now, for every single chemical on that site-specific list, there has to be a corresponding safety data sheet, or SDS. This is a standardized 16-section document that details exactly what the chemical is, what its health hazards are, and the precise first aid procedures required if an exposure happens. The brilliance of the SDS is that it ensures 20-year veterans and brand new hires alike share the exact same standardized vocabulary for emergency chemical response. It takes all the guesswork out of an emergency. But here's the thing. A document is completely useless if you can't read it when an emergency strikes at, say, 2 a.m. Your plant's SDS binders, whether they're physical binders, or electronic databases, must be accessible 24/7. They have to be available to all employees across all active shifts. They cannot be locked away in a manager's office where you can't reach them during a night shift chemical spill. That 24/7 access, it's a non-negotiable federal mandate.
So, what happens when a chemical is phased out? Well, behind the scenes, management must preserve a 5-year history archive of obsolete safety data sheets. Even if you stop using a specific solvent today, that old SDS goes right into the archive for 5 full years. Why this matters is pretty simple. It protects retroactive health mapping. If an employee develops a health issue years later, actually, even just months later, you need the exact chemical profile of what they handled back then, not just what happens to be on the floor today. All right, let's pivot to Section 2, Active Floor Defense, covering handling and GHS labels. Transitioning to the second link in our chain, we're stepping out of the paperwork and onto the physical production floor, where handling and labeling become daily survival tools. First up, we really need to understand GHS, which stands for the Globally Harmonized System. This is an international standard that uses uniform pictograms, those striking black symbols inside the red diamond borders, along with clear hazard statements to classify chemicals. This is the universal visual language of safety. Whether you speak English, Spanish, or anything else, seeing a red diamond with a flame inside immediately tells you, okay, this is highly flammable.
Now, think about how we actually work on a busy printing floor. Original drums arrive with massive, detailed GHS labels straight from the manufacturer. But you don't drag a 55-gallon drum over to clean a small press roller, right?
You transfer that solvent into an alternate or secondary container, like a squeeze bottle or a portable sprayer. That exact moment of transfer is where strict secondary container labeling rules apply to prevent those catastrophic blinding mix-ups we talked about earlier. The mandate here requires absolute authority. It states that all small portable sprayers, wash squeeze bottles, or chemistry transport containers must feature highly visible, untorn GHS secondary hazard labels. This is entirely about personal accountability. Every single time you pick up a bottle, you need to verify that label. If the label is missing, torn, or you just can't read it, you do not use it. You report it immediately. Now, there is one very specific exception to this, but it comes with a strict 24-hour rule. If you pour a chemical into a temporary portable container that is intended only for your immediate personal use during your shift, you have to ensure that container is completely emptied and cleaned within 24 hours. You absolutely cannot leave an unmarked cup of solvent sitting on a workstation for the next shift to accidentally knock over. 24 hours. Zero exceptions.
Which brings us to Section 3, Physical Protection and Emergency Readiness, focusing on PPE and eyewash stations. Let's move to our final high-stakes link. This focuses on the physical defenses and emergency readiness protocols that act as your absolute last line of protection when engineering controls fail and an accident actually happens.
This right here is your armor. You must wear your assigned mandatory personal protective equipment without exception when you're dispensing, mixing, or handling hazardous inks in press washes. We are talking about chemical-resistant gloves, safety aprons, and OSHA-approved safety glasses. The exact moment you decide to skip the safety glasses just for a quick mix is the exact moment a volatile UV coating is going to splash. Put the gear on. Every single time. If a chemical does happen to splash into your eyes, you have exactly 10 seconds to reach an emergency eye wash station. That footpath has to be entirely clear, no pallets or boxes blocking the way. But here's a surprising and honestly kind of terrifying fact. Stagnant water and printing facility pipes can grow dangerous bacteria like Legionella or Acanthamoeba. If you flush a chemical out of your eyes using contaminated, rusty water, you could cause a severe infection or even permanent blindness. That is why a quick weekly flush of the eye wash station to clear out sediment and bacteria is quite literally a sight saver. So, we've covered the training, the labels, the PPE, and the emergency flushes. I want to leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up this explainer. Look around your workspace today. Look at the squeeze bottles sitting on the counter. Look at the path to the eye wash station. If a chemical splashed right now, this very second, is your chain of safety strong enough to protect you? Ultimately, your vigilance is what makes these standard operating procedures actually save lives. Stay safe out there, stay observant, and please, never take that spray bottle for granted.